All right. Good morning, GM.
Hey, good morning.
Welcome. Welcome to the Slop. Thanks for joining us here. Let me fade this out. Got that some nice morning music. It's probably not morning where you are. How you doing, Adam?
Oh, it is morning. Yeah, it's near Toronto, so it's 10 a.m.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm doing well. Yeah, very happy to be here. Glad, but yeah, glad that we could. Just reaching out and getting this together quickly worked out, and very excited to talk about. I guess the intersection of crypto and the changes in AI and how all of that.
Heck yeah, yes. I feel like so you're head of engineering at Aztec, which I think is a highly technical job. The role must really require someone that has a highly technical brain, and I don't know. Do you want to talk about what head of engineering at Aztec looks like?
Yeah. So I guess like a tiny bit of background. I've been coding since I was young. Like I'm 9 years old. I started, and during the pandemic, like got into crypto. It's funny. I mean, it was just like a friend who's essentially meme coin gambling. But then I'm like, hey, wait, this Uniswap thing. There's code that's one thing just clicked instantly. It's like there's code for the server, and the server's running that code. Which was like, it feels very quaint now, but it did get me into being like, oh, there's something here. Like it's cool. It's got a vibe I like. It's got an ethos I like. And then it became kind of a bucket list item for me to go to crypto. So when someone reached out on LinkedIn, just be like, oh, do you want to work on Ethereum applications? And I had actually just started a job at Wayfair, but I was like, that's actually exactly what I want to do. And, you're saving me the effort of like, all I have to do is say yes. So that worked out. And I got an interview at Aztec, and just turned out some of my skill set overlapped, crypto background. So there, he's going to be like 4 years in November. I've spent a fair bit of time learning the stack, a lot of very cool concepts. And I would say that Aztec has, building in the ZK space, we have one of our founders, Zach, he co-invented Block with Ariel, our chief scientist at the time. And from there, I mean, it's been very cutting edge. I don't think my brain has ever been bored at Aztec. It's been a lot to learn, but I definitely becoming head of engineering recently, I do feel like it's sort of I'm honored, and I do feel like it's been hard fought. It's been over years of actually understanding all the little bits that go into our unique product of a private blockchain.
Exactly. It's not just EVM and blockchain is already a lot. There's a lot of technical content there for how Ethereum works and how the EVM works and how programmable smart contracts work and EOAs and smart contract wallets and all of that, mempools and MEV. But on top of all that, then you have all this like zero knowledge stuff, like the ZK EVM, or I don't know if I'm saying it correctly, but the way Aztec works is it's all of that, but then there's a bunch of like heady moon math ZK stuff on top of it.
Yeah, definitely. Aztec. Now, obviously, it is too vast for one brain. Like some of those things you mentioned, I know the people I would ask, like the intricacies of our mempool. That's sort of there are, but like I think there's still to really thrive at Aztec. There's a lot you need to hold in your head. You need to hold at least like several of the pieces well, and the way we basically built a non-EVM rollup, which it has a public component that the way we designed the public component is mainly UX first with the private component. So when you're mixing public and private state, you have one code file in Noir. We also built the programming language for ZK
So much
which
better than Sircom.
it's this is an RT shirt. I'm repping it, which actually it fits with Slop.Computer. But
Yes, it's on brand for sure.
Yeah, so we focused on the UX of you have one smart contract, and that is using state in a way that's very intuitive. It sort of combines the programming models, and also we went for more on the consumer end, where a ZK EVM. If we went for that requires quite a lot of memory. We on the slightly higher end MacBooks, you could run the public prover, which requires a lot of memory, and the rollup. And then on basically any phone, you can run the private proofs, which actually create private transactions. And that has been a big focus, is that we've been uniquely, bitterly, even when it's been very hard, focused on decentralization. And it's been a core tenet, and it's definitely our architecture kind of falls out of that. And we have to solve a lot of hard problems.
Great. And then now, as the world of AI is changing how we build and how we work with coworkers, I think Raul connected you with me because of the AI. It's not like a CRM. It's like Centaur, but before Centaur existed, you created like management with an AI agent, kind of like before entities too. I feel like the word entity is hot right now, and it is like the next thing of how AI interacts with us. But it's basically, is it Slack? You mentioned Slack, but I didn't know if you were using that as like a reference, or is it actually like in the company Slack and everyone's kind of like, go ahead.
Yeah.
Are we gonna do a demo? Let me move stuff out of the way here.
Yes.
That'd be great.
You know the guest queues very well.
Well, good luck finding everything in Slop.Computer too. But yeah, you click screen over here and then click which screen you want. Hell yes.
So screen, let me all right. Which is the sorry, screen, got it. And then okay.
There we go.
Okay. So it was given a very internal name. Do tell me, is it all coming through now?
Yep, I've got it. Yep, we've got it. Clock
so
box,
this is
that right? Am I seeing
the
right text there?
Yeah, so this is just one running on my local computer, scrambling for a demo. I didn't get anything running in here. And certainly the one that we have in production, well, you can see like audit findings here. So it's didn't want to just show that raw. So this is connected to Slack, and you can think of this as the backend UI. There's one way I would describe the core of it is sort of like a CI system just for AI tasks. And actually, there's a bit of history of me and an engineer, Charlie, actually the CTO, working on CI systems in Aztec, and sort of CI was always important, but maybe a little behind the scenes. So when I kind of realized, hey, you know what we really need is a CI system that does nothing but run AI, it's sort of like, okay, I feel like I could use that built up knowledge in a way that's a lot more flashy, and it actually, I think, very useful.
Could you maybe talk about what the CI system looked like before AI? Like when I think of CI/CD, I think of it's like a pipeline of things that run after your code is done, but like as they're going into production to make sure it all works right. Is that the right way to think about it?
Yeah, for sure. So we still have that. The deterministic CI system, we had like some specific requirements. For example, ZK proving and actually relation both require a lot of memory and CPU. We have our prover stack in C++. And then compiling very big Moir circuits in Moir also. So we essentially have a big machine that we then, on that one machine, we make sure that it can run all the tasks, and sort of, it was a bunch of just DevOps engineering to get that in a good form factor. And that does run on every PR. Now, why I say this is a CI system, it is connected to CI. So now we are able to bounce off tasks from this system, and they would run here. So now, for example, when a PR, say you have a traditional CI system, and you're trying to, as we often do, port things between two versions. Then basically there's that's deterministic. However, I think everyone who's an engineer knows that merge conflicts, they essentially require judgment. And what's a very nice property is if you have such a system and you can connect such a system like this that is made for running jobs, and actually it sort of mirrors our CI system. This also is running on a, in this case, a shared computer everyone uses, but it is importantly beefy enough to build the code base efficiently, and also to have a bunch of these tasks run in parallel. So using that, it's able to, take this rotes task and get it to the point where at least, okay, we have, the AI has done its pass on solving the merge conflict, and actually then it can, say you constantly port these things, the AI could build up this, it does build up this PR of, hey, here's all of the conflict changes. Let me tag all the people that need to review just these diffs. Everything else is rote. Everything else is just a big old merge. I mean, no one really reviews like 100-file merge, which is just a bunch of merge commits. And that's very pre-AI. So that it really just gets it down to the minimum of this very tedious in the past task of backporting. Now, I think that's like the least exciting use case, but for a CI engineer, I'm like, oh gosh, yes. Like now I can, one of the classic problems in CI is that you would often automate things a very specific way, and then requirements would change. And now I'm like, oh great, I can just write in English. Actually, anyone can write in English. Everyone knows English. And I think that's been very powerful. This kind of extension of CI where it previously you'd have to really flip people on it. And now you can kind of, basically do pros that people can tweak. And people can even talk to these sessions and just be like, do something different next time. Like OpenClaw definitely has this operational model.
Very nice. Okay, so there's this like very sticky thing where a bunch of people are working on the same code base, they're PRing in changes, and there's conflicts here and there. Those conflicts cannot just be handled by a deterministic process. You have this nice like brain on top of it that has context for everyone. And then that brain can, like in a very nice way, like bring the human in at the moment and say, like, we need a human in the loop for this little decision, and you're the human that knows the most about it. They get a message about it. They respond in plain English. The PR gets merged. The stuff gets shipped to production. And like you said, also upgrades and changes and things are now less about rebuilding another deterministic system to deal with it and more like just prompting, which is so magic. So what kind of models are running back behind that harness?
Yeah, so I mean, the name Claude does indicate the starting point at least.
Yeah.
So yeah, one unique thing with Claude is sort of like, you like engineers that want to work on their own stuff with their subscription can work with their subscription, which it's not the most novel thing, but in the age of subsidies, if you do have a subscription, that's going to be the most AI bang for your buck. So that's definitely one thing that a lot of platforms that, why would we build this internally? And a lot of platforms wouldn't really be able to be like, hey, use your own subs, because that is supposed to be sort of an internal facing tool. And beyond that, so it supports Claude Code and Codex, it supports AI keys, of course. And I think the bread and butter is the frontier Claude and Codex models, especially if you are using AI subscriptions. If people are just using their own subscriptions in this loop to do their work, then you get a lot of bang for your buck. I mean, the subsidies on these subscriptions can be quite high. Now, beyond that, obviously, there's cases where you do need to use API keys, and that is where a plethora of different agents definitely become attractive. Even beyond that, we've recently been dabbling in Kimi code, and I think the main reason beyond this, beyond these very good frontier models, is that they've just started refuse cybersecurity work. They've stopped.
Fable just is like, nope, I'm out. I can't do this.
Yeah.
It's biological. It's cybersecurity.
Yeah,
like, bro, I just asked you to merge a PR.
Yes, exactly. And so I think currently of the frontier models, Opus 5 is the most willing. And I think it's in terms of cybersecurity, that's sort of been the, we have seen that, like, doing back tests, it finds old bugs pretty efficiently. Then I think Kimi is still attractive because it doesn't get off-put by, like, sometimes we really just want it to role-play an adversary, and you use nasty languages like, attack the network and do full exploits. And Kimi, we're still seeing where its niche is, and certainly I think we're going to ramp up its usage just to get model diversity. But I think where I've definitely seen a niche is when we have a partial POC and we just need something to grind for hours with the mindset of an adversary. A lot of the Claude and Codex or Anthropic and OpenAI models are more sensitive, and that I understand, but sometimes we really do just need to role play someone that's trying to do something nasty.
Send in the Chinese model. Yeah. And is Kimi open weight too? I feel like there's something special about these open weight models that also kind of is along the lines of our same ethos of decentralization.
Yeah, it definitely definitely not lost on us that the open weight models are the ones that we're already getting refusals. And I definitely like the open weight ecosystem. I think they do amazing things, especially the fine-tuned communities that really get amazing results in one niche. And it's sort of been an explosion of that. You have so many people in the open source community trying things. And now Kimi, of course, is a 2.8 trillion parameter model, which will mean that a lot of these people I see on the Discord will just never fine-tune it. So there is, but it's still one of those things. Like open source software, traditionally, it wasn't, oh yeah, you will edit it. It's someone else is enabled to work on it. It's open, and you get the benefits. And it's definitely going to be these larger Kimi models.
When you're talking about someone in the Discord making the model more personalized, are you talking about the Aztec Discord or the Kimi Discord?
Yeah. I'm more thinking of these LLM-based Discords. Yeah.
Okay. So they would be fine-tuning it towards cybersecurity, and you would borrow that. Is that what you're thinking?
Yeah. Sorry, we're not really consumer fine-tunes. That's more speaking from my own hobby. Fine-tune.
Which is also, we're like right at the intersection of that. Intersection of crypto and intersection of business and hobby here. You also, you were sorry to take a giant tangent here, but you used to make a bunch of games, I think, me too. I love making games, and I feel like building games is like a fun part of how I don't know, have learned how to make products. Has that, sorry, we're on a like a knee-jerk tangent here, but has your history of building games or simple games, or I don't know how big or users you had, but did that help you with getting good at making products, I guess, or being good at engineering and products?
Yeah. I mean, I am very happy to talk about my game development, so no worries about a tangent. So I think, first of all, one of the reasons I got hired at Aztec was my C++ background, which I started at age 14, a little overwhelmed. I started with first like being productive with GameMaker, and then being like using C++ and learning from this book that taught it very C-like. And I'm like, why is this such a big step down? Why can't arrays grow suddenly?
But at the time it was magic, though. When you could make a little spaceship on a screen move around and have like, basic physics, like, So
course.
fun.
No,
Yeah.
I mean, to the point, specifically with C++, it took me a while to
Yeah.
be productive. But
Yeah.
It's still an ongoing. It was like great as a kid. You can just like drag things. You could put in sprites. You could edit the examples. They had sort of a visual language where you could drag things. Before that was cool. And yeah, it's definitely enabled a lot of creativity. Like I would just have, you would just take the stock platformer example. You get friends over and you use a room editor and you make levels, and then they're like, oh, I want this like thing, and you'd be like, okay, we could probably code this little feature. And it was just a great way that it was felt like a game. And you have these games, and then as a kid, I still remember one of my first attempts before I even learned programming was I noticed that games were exe files. So, and I noticed that you could rename a text file as .exe. So my first attempt at programming was to write English into a text file, rename it exe, and I still think like that basically works to me.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Like now, that's basically what's happening, right? You write English and you get an exe out of it, and it like basically translates your intent into the machine code needed for the exe. That's funny.
Yeah, and then I make quite a few games. It's a hobby I like to stay abreast with. There's been several years-long projects, but funny enough, users and the complexity of the project have been sort of not inversely correlated. If you get a complex project and you grind for years, like eventually you get some people that are interested, like mainly some friends that would play it repeatedly. I never was great at marketing these things, at least the ones that didn't have art. I did for Halloween, just like in a month and a half, work with an artist who like really did a good job. And we made like this game called Carny Death Peddlers. It kind of got into the Halloween like indie scene, and there was YouTubers that had like tens of thousands of views. That's like probably the peak of my games actually being in the public.
This is like 15 years ago or something. This is like this is like a decade ago. I couldn't just like pull this up on your GitHub or something. I have your GitHub up, but I can't.
Yeah, it wouldn't be on my GitHub.
Oh, okay.
I should probably put it there, but like back then I was with GameMaker, it was a bit hard to use with GitHub. But yeah, it has this like charming style. I mean, the artist really pulled his weight here. I think the coding is changing. Some terrible puns, very terrible, but we had like zombie Shakespeare as a boss and like a chainsaw man, and still very much remember it fondly.
Wow. I feel like that's you put a lot into that too. That's really cool. And now you can vibe code something like that. Even the artwork you can have like help with, right? Like it's crazy how that process was so hard. You had to like team up with an artist, and you probably wrote code for months. Or you said a month and a half, or
a month and a half
something.
Of real grinding.
Yeah.
Which actually I was working at Red Hat at the time, so that was like my life. My life just was that and working. I honestly I'm still hobby deving actively when I have time, and I think one thing is you can get a lot of like quick fixes nowadays with vibe coding, and I certainly make quick games. Like just the other weekend I was messing with just like a roguelike, and then finding an asset set. But I'll say it's still very hard to get something like I would say the Carny Death Peddlers was quite polished in the end, and that is still where I don't like that last mile is very hard.
Oh man, yeah, it's so hard.
And I find that you end up making something that looks pretty good pretty quickly, but then you end up being like, okay, but it does. If you can feel the AI-ness, you can feel that these animations, like you might think of them as a first pass, but often they just have to be completely redone. So I'm sort of still waiting for that next step up. But I will say that in terms of engines programming, in terms of my bread and butter, it's like so much easier. If I want to now go back, which I have, to like fix a bunch of engine bugs in my old games, it is amazing.
This is another thing. I was talking with the FWA guy about running projects back, because I'm really excited about running them back. I feel like I have all these other projects that I wanted to kind of like, like they were basically too early, and like now is the time to do them. Like blockchain gaming is like cheap and easy, and you could do it on mainnet if you want. And you could just give the AI agent your old code base, and it's going to find all sorts of stuff, like the "you live like this" kind of meme where he comes in and it's like, oh my gosh, this is trash. But like he'll be able to just take it all and just like understand the intent of it from right up front and just like run with it. So that's I don't know. I feel like I'm probably going to run back some projects that I have by just like pulling everything down and giving it to the AI and being like, you see what I was doing here. Please make it good.
Yeah, for sure.
So, okay. So on the hobby dev side, what does your stack look like? And how does that compare to the Aztec dev side? Like when you sit down to make a game versus when you sit down to make a PR, what does the stack look like? What model are you using? What harness are you using? That kind of stuff.
Yeah. So the languages can very well just be completely, disparate, because a lot of the times these days I'm going for, well, AI strength is like the web platform has also evolved a lot since, I was trying to program. And it's also a very good strength of the models. And a lot of the times, I don't have that much time for in-depth dev. It's more, hey, let's try some quirky ideas. So basically it would be like JavaScript, and honestly just a lot of stock models like Claude Code and Codex are my bread and butter. Just kind of flip through them as one advances versus another.
Okay. Like you're not married to Claude Code or Codex. A lot of guests I've had on Slop.Computer are like, I'm a Codex guy or I'm a Claude guy, but you're most like, I'm using them basically vanilla, and when a new model comes out, I switch over to the other one and I give the other one my repo and we work for a while, and then when another model comes out, I go back to the other one and give it. Is that kind of how it works?
Yeah. I'll try.
So subscriptions to both, basically.
Yeah. Basically, sometimes I'll let one lapse for my personal subscription, then like, okay, now I'll try 5.6 Sol or something. Or like that. I'm just
Yep.
But in terms of like vanilla, I think mostly I don't go too hard with customs. I certainly don't go too hard installing lots of skills I find on the internet, because a lot of the times I'm sort of
scary.
Dubious. Well, it's scary, but I'm also sort of dubious that they're going to really provide an edge when the new model comes out. And most of the time I'm like, hey, for my hobby programming, it's like new model, new tool, I get to play with it.
Yeah.
But
let's talk about that real quick. That's a great tangent. It's just like skill files. I feel like there's some interesting things with skill files. First of all, as a skill file dev, I built ETH skills. It's just like a skill for like when you wake the model up, it does not know how like modern Ethereum works and how to build on top of it. It still thinks it's way too expensive and a whole bunch of other things. Tooling is very old in its knowledge. So I built a scaling which just gives it like modern Ethereum and modern tooling. The thing with the skill is you're almost like working yourself out of a job, first of all. Like you have a skill file and you're building it, and you're basically like, that skill file is probably going to train the next model. So you're sort of like working yourself out of a job. You're kind of like bringing all the important knowledge together in a place where the next LLM can easily train on it. And that's okay. And then the second thing is, if you have a really good skill file and you're running a business on it, which you can, like skill files can be businesses now, and then you open source it, then you're giving away all your secret sauce for free. So there's this really interesting thing about building skill files and whether or not you open source them. And if you do open source them, you kind of give them all away for free. You train the models. But if you don't, they look like they're nefarious. I don't know. There's some interesting things there. I don't know if I even have a really great question around that, but are you using a lot of skill files? How do you use them? Are they ephemeral for you in your stack?
Yeah, so I think one, maybe before we run out of time talking about all this stuff, I'll talk a bit about one of the central things I think we want to talk about, which is like the AI tool that's was built at Aztec. And that, I think, one of the core things, I mean, it's funny to think about. When I started to build this in March, it was still sort of the era of engineers. Some of them were pretty hesitant to use Claude. I think like the last few months have really changed that, where what it means to sort of resist AI has changed a lot. Like the people who resist AI are still using AI. But I was sort of showing off like a personal harness I had, and then it quickly dawned on me that I was having a lot of threads open with my personal harness, and naturally my attention was limited. I would be rotating around these PRs. Every time I'd be prompting in my little, it was basically just tmucks, just like terminals that were long-lived, and I would go through them. I would take long enough that someone else would start doing very similar work, because a lot of what this was enabling was like random ideas. And that's sort of what led me to this sort of idea originally. So I did a lot of work on the cryptography stack just as a general engineer. Very grateful for that experience. Also, I think that ties in very well to the hobby experience, because it was C++. And I think a big reason why I was a hire that made sense with no crypto experience for Aztec was that they had a C++ stack, and I had been using it since I was young. And my first pitch for this was just, hey, what if we had a repo just for Claude, and it would just make PRs there, make queues there, and we kind of segregate Claude and let it do its thing. And then from there, it sort of evolved. And I guess to tie it into what we're talking about right now, one thing that came out of it is once I started to connect it to Slack, start to be like, hey, this thing is just running. Okay, expand it. I from the get-go was like, it's what we're building here is not going to just make sense for the cryptography stack. It is general. And once we got into the flow of like, okay, it's connected to Slack, you could just ask it something, make a PR. Then once we're connecting it to basically everything else, it becomes, there were people developing skills in the open source Aztec repo for development. And I think where it really started to pick up, at least in my mind, as something that was enabling us to move faster is when you can make a skill and you know that this AI harness is constantly is using your skill, and you can kind of see like, okay, we can do analysis. Is it getting stuck due to the skill? And while there wasn't formal A/B testing, it was sort of a rolling, oh, we can kind of tell from the pros, is it reasoning better or not? I think for something like Aztec, it's a no-brainer. We have an open source repo. We want to enable people to build on it. We want to disseminate that knowledge because it is a complex project. So the more we can help people use AI, the better. I think for some, as you alluded, I think for some companies, it's a lot harder. Especially one thing we could talk about is like what's happening to traditional audit firms in the age of LLMs. And I think a lot of those firms now are pivoting from just raw time for their expert auditors to, hey, we need to build AI systems that are better than everyone else's. And there's certainly a tension of now we want to create the best security tool in crypto and keep them closed source. And it is definitely a tension.
That's the worst part of that is like it's like the secret sauce. They're building a very good system and no one else gets to use it because they need to corner that market. And as an auditing firm, the amount of human time is like the critical variable, and the amount of AI they can throw at it. When someone's paying you $100,000 for an audit, your AI bill is not important. You're throwing your AI bill at it and letting, like, the AI should do as much as it possibly can for the human before the human gets to it. And then the human spends the human time, but it should be like very much supplemented by a lot of the AI time. Yeah. And so with the skill files in that case, shout out to Pashov skills, because I built $1 audit, which is like a CI/CD pipeline where you audit a contract for $1, and it's meant to be like, oh, that's way too cheap. Like but it's like it's like a 10,000 audit 2 years ago, but now you get it for $1 because of what AI has given us. But that would not be possible without a whole bunch of open source audit skills, and so there are some people sharing their audit skills, which is really nice. Okay, so I wanted to kind of change gears to I would say that as I've done these interviews, I've noticed that some of the most technical developers, some of the most C++ guys I've met are having the hardest time moving over to AI. And it seems like it was a very natural, like, good transition for you. What do you think is different with you versus maybe some other more not more, but just other very technical C++ devs, that, like, what allowed you to transition into AI better than them?
I think there's a few things. I've always been, there's certainly an open mind. I've always hungry for better tools. I know what it's like to build a C++ game engine from scratch and be like, geez, last year I just did low-level things.
Out.
It's very hard to explain.
Yeah.
And in terms of my hobby, like game development, it's incredible, right? Like I think there was a long period where I'm like, oh yeah, the algorithms, like the computer science, like this is what I want to do. But at the same time, I was sort of hurting. I was like, but the actual vision, I do want to make this action RPG I play with friends, and it works. I spent like 7 years on it, like in my spare time, and now I can play it, and there's a few people who really like it, but it's got like no tutorial, it's got like no bells and whistles. So for me, I think you could say that was sort of always product minded. I sort of exhausted myself programming, and then naturally wanted something a little easier. But I think also it is to the credit of Aztec that there's a lot of interesting problems out there. And I was always sort of, a little ADD about it. I was always like, okay, let me work on the cryptography stack. Oh, the node team sounds like it's the place where it needs the most resources. Oh, could I like switch to the node team and help them out? And I think when you have that kind of mindset of, oh, what's a little bit I can do everywhere, then it sort of naturally leads to, I was just trying to get breadth. And I think where a lot of the people that get frustrated with AI is definitely depth, because it often, often you get things where you're getting so much code that you have to really rethink how you're going to do code review. You have to loosen your standards, which a lot of people don't do. But I think it is the reality of the stage. And I think if you kind of have if you're willing to step back and be, okay, I'm now a technical product manager in many ways, it's going to be easier for you than if you're like, I really like the old way. I really like taking my time writing the code, and these AI PRs are coming in quickly, and they're just turning the code style even into something that I don't like, or people are no longer worrying about human readability as much because they're asking the LLM about the code. And I think depending where you are, it is a rougher transition.
There's a couple different threads there, and the one that I resonate with is sort of like the coding was always like a means to an end. I wanted to make the product. I wanted to get the product in someone's hands, and I wanted to see them use the product. And I was doing all the coding so I could ship the thing that someone would play. And I think a lot of people who are having a hard time with AI ship code because they love the code, and the end product is sort of just like a kind of like a secondary thing that kind of just comes out of it. So there's that. But then you really hinted at something here that's different. It's like this breadth versus depth thing, and you're kind of like moving up a layer of abstraction and becoming a manager and thinking of breadth more, even though you've gone deep and you've done your own game engine, you've experienced it. But even going deep and making the game engine, your goal was to have the engine, to have the game, to have the people play it. So it was always still product minded, even when you were deep down in the thing. So yeah. I think, yes, that abstraction mindset, the product mindset, the manager mindset, all of those things kind of coming together make you much more suited for AI than someone who's deep down. I love the way the code is shaped, and I wake up every morning and the thing that makes me happy is how the code is shaped and how the algorithm is working. Like, they're going to have the hardest time with AI, I think. And I don't know if there's like a good way to pull them out of that, because it's the thing they enjoy. Like, they don't enjoy as much the end product and seeing people use it than I think a more product person does. And yeah, I don't know if I have a good answer to that, but it's going to be harder for them, this transition.
I have like a partial answer. So for example, our cryptography stack, it requires a lot more attention, and naturally
There's still problems out there that need the a very like deep human. Yeah.
that it's naturally more detail oriented. The risk of mistakes is much higher. The benefit from good engineering, we have stuff that's running on a client device. If you have lots of deep insight into performance profiling on all these platforms, and I think essentially I've always, so software has always operated on good enough. This is why we have tons of security hacks, because good enough means, honestly, because people paying for it, good enough means every so often all the data is breached. Obviously, yeah, in crypto we try for something a little different bar there. But essentially it's true. It's true in crypto too, where if the customers are willing to pay for the software, that is the definition of good enough, whether you like it or not. And I think engineers traditionally have not, like those same engineers have not like working on that like good enough layer of like, oh yeah, the security is not great, but ship it because the customers want this feature now. Kind of that move fast and make things dirty mindset. That's always existed, and I think the same engineers have always resisted that kind of approach. And they've sort of, I think where people get uncomfortable is they've sort of receded into like back end and stuff where people have valued engineering more, have valued the kind of detail-oriented touch. And I think, yeah, those engineers, there's probably a receive landmass. There's still those projects that really value, you worry about every line, you really you really put engineering principles to play. But even then, you have to contest with the fact that an LLM might be the right tool for the job in many cases. But yeah, I think there are problems that are going to be more and less comfortable for those kind of engineers.
Okay. Yeah, I think I agree. I think we need to probably wrap up in about 10 minutes, probably. A question I like to ask everybody on Slop.Computer is what is your AI psychosis, or how do you define AI psychosis? Because it's kind of different for everyone, and it's neat to hear other people's definition or other people's definition of their own personal AI psychosis. But how would you answer the AI psychosis question?
Yeah. So AI psychosis, if we talk about overconfidence due to AI, it's certainly that opinion that, oh, I've gone deep, so I'm going to, my few word prompt is going to be a lot more effective than the other person's few word prompt, even though we're both typing in a few words. And that's, oh, of course I'm going to, even though all of these other projects exist and there's like 100 slot projects in the same thing, I'm going to build my slot project and it's going to be better. And in terms of, yeah, I mean, I guess it's an interesting question. Like, do you have, actually, how would you answer the question? I'm curious.
Well, yeah, okay. So I would say there's like different layers of AI psychosis. There's the AI is your friend and is like telling you you're right all the time. That's one version, and you just like get stuck in this loop of you think you're brilliant and their friend, this is an actual human, and your brain is like tricked into thinking that you're dealing with a human. I think that was like one of the first AI psychosis moments. I think there's an AI psychosis around keeping your agents busy, and this is more like a developer's AI psychosis, is like when you have a subscription and it runs out in 14 hours and you still have some headroom and you're not prompting, you're like sitting with your kids in the backyard like enjoying things, and you're sitting there worried about the agents. Like I think that's a certain version of psychosis. Saro talks about hardware, like he just keeps buying hardware and he feels like he needs to keep buying hardware, and like this like GPU psychosis. I think there's like a data or even like accomplishment psychosis where people think that they've accomplished a whole bunch by building a thing that you can one shot with a model now, but you built it in the past and you've gathered all of this and time, and they have a very hard time of like realizing that it's just one slash goal away from being completely recreated. And I think that that's a different form of psychosis. Yeah, I don't know. I have lots of friends that I feel like are in psychosis because they've got all these MD files all over the place and they think they've created this amazing thing, but like no one uses it. And it's like, at the end of the day, if this goes away, nothing actually goes away. And you need to realize that means that there's nothing there in the first place. And it's kind of scary and gross and sad, but lots of different versions of psychosis there. That's my rundown from a whole bunch of angles, but you should take it back and run with it.
Yeah, so I think I think whenever I have this kind of energy, I'm a slightly obsessive person, so I end up running it to the ground. So I think I finally sort of let back on. I still, my personal subs, I'll run to the ground, but it's a lot easier now. Like I can use my personal sub in an agentic harness, and there's basically always useful things. Like I can connect my subscription to Cloudbox, and essentially it will be given tasks that I know, like every so often, when we first started this, we found vulnerabilities in Aztec pretty quickly, which at some of these were human audited components. And I think that did trigger, like, I think my present psychosis is like, oh, if I give it the right input into the harness, if I give it the right tasks and seed it to crunch on something, then we're going to improve the product in some way.
Cool.
And I think I've let go of, I say this whereas
and then like you'll be back into it.
no, I say this as like I basically have an agent running on doing some mod on a Heroes of Magic T clone for my friends to play. It's running in the background, so I can't say it's lit up, but yeah, I think I've let go a bit of like running lots of agents myself. I think I had that anxious energy. It caused me to build an AI harness. But definitely, I think the anxious energy now is, pretty much like, oh, I'm one step away from improving this AI harness or making these AI tools which run themselves. I think that's a lot of my latent restlessness. I think I do think that there is that sort of like markdown mentality of, if we're not finding things, is it because we just didn't give it the right pros? And that's a constant sort of like thing in the back of your mind. Or like,
I think prompt psychosis. So I feel like this is not one that I particularly mentioned or have heard like really commonly, but your a psychosis, if I say it back to you, is like you're focusing a lot of the back of your mind or your back processes on like, how can I make the prompt better to get the thing out? Like you're one prompt away from fixing an important thing, and that's like that like nudges you or kind of bugs you in the back of your mind of like how you could write the prompt better or something along those lines. Though I think prompt psychosis is definitely this is new. I think this is a good one I'll add to my list.
I think like once you got, so I think my evolution of AI agents has definitely been getting this harness loop. But once you get the harness loop, then it is like you have these seed prompts, and the seed prompts make the thing think for a long time and fan out, and that's sort of how the harness works. And then there's like a review phase. So you end up really hyperfixating on like, oh, did I write this prompt? Is like getting stuck and yeah. Definitely.
Okay, last question. Let me have Claudebot ask us a question. We haven't brought him in at all. Let me see. What he does is he reads the transcript and your research.
If Claudebox lets anyone automate work in plain English, what does the Aztec engineering team look like in 2 years? Fewer engineers or just faster ones?
In 2 years, 2 years.
2 years is super hard. Yeah. What do you think? Yeah.
In 2 years.
Maybe 6 months or a year, even if that's easier. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think. One thing I'll say is that I think agentic is comfortably the form factor for the next while. I think the thing going forward in agentic is mainly going to be, I think, okay, in 2 years, we're probably going to have very good learning that's not training the model. So in 2 years, this harness likely is going to be learning by itself in some ways, and then the engineers in the loop are going making sure that it has not learned bad lessons, that it's sort of working with it, learning from it, and using that to inform their design. And maybe the AI is doing more of asking them questions, exploring what they want from product, and prompting them. I think that's like an easy answer to give 2 years from now. It's like we're going to have roll inversion. 6 months from now, I think we're going to have incremental progress. I think basically where we are now, where agents are running by themselves for longer and longer, I think that still has a lot of design room. I think the design room that's harder is the agent really answering very quickly, because you're sort of constrained by latency. But we still have a lot of room to go for agents that just think for 3 hours and they're still doing useful work. I like this blog post by Human Layer. They were just running this thing called Slop Code Bench, and it sort of is an interesting one because instead of a one-shot problem, the AI doesn't get to see the full problem, and bit by bit, it's sort of made to evolve the code base. And notably, the pass rates are a lot lower. They're like 5 to 12%. And I think like in 6 months, that is going to be something that is a lot better. And naturally, the engineers in the loop are going to be looking at work that has stewed for longer. I think there's still going to be similar bottlenecks. It's sort of like reviewing, staying on top of cognitive debts. The bottleneck is probably going to be more prominent of, the strain on the human, I guess.
Interesting. Okay, so harnesses are going to get better, models are going to get better, but one thing you're leaning on is like the training of like your specific system. The personalization is going to get better, and therefore that's going to lead to, yes, humans are going to have to be more abstract, but like the moment the human is the moment the human is in the loop is going to be more and more important. And so your team will change toward those moments, and underneath, like, they will build up their AI stack to make that moment more important.
Yeah, and I think software architecture, as a last note, is just going to completely change, because this idea of good enough, we want as much software as possible to be on this layer of like, okay, low risk. And obviously our idea of risk changes, but I think we're going to move towards, mitigated sandbox components that can move quickly. I think that's going to be a big jump the software engineering community has to recognize.
Okay, you got to dip on another call. Let me have Claude give us an outro. Adam, thank you so much for being here. This has been a great call. Very in-depth. Your psychosis is a new psychosis.
That's a wrap.
I'm going to
Homies,
put it in my book.
Big thanks to Domurad, Adam from Aztec Labs. We went from Claude box turning CI and merge conflicts into plain English to open weight models playing the adversary games at 14 and ending up in zero knowledge. Good one. Go build something private. See you next time, homies. Claude out.
Thanks so much.
Thank you. Thanks for being here. Thank you, Adam.